My entitled boss fires me after I refuse to quit my second job, stating that the only reason I have a second job is because I'm lazy, and I'm honestly still in shock by the way this guy treated me. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened back when I was 18 years old. Things may seem off, but remember, this was in the early 2000s, and that time was a crazy time. Now, for the sake of the story, I'll call my main boss the entitled boss, and my second boss the nice boss. Now, when I was 18 years old, my 37-year-old entitled boss was a tyrant. He lived life on easy mode. College was cheap for him, and he didn't have to pay because his dad covered all of it. His business was even started on him having advantages over his employees in life. He couldn't see that though, because he felt that he worked for all of it. He simply did not get how his millennial employees were struggling with what we were being paid. We were getting paid $5 an hour at the time, which I know for a fact was below the minimum wage at the time. I didn't complain though, because I needed a job. Living in New York is expensive, but it is hard to leave New York when your family is broke. At the time, I just started college, and he knew that and agreed to me having Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off. That way, I can go to school and at least have one day to myself. I needed to save towards paying off student loans and eventually getting my own place. Now, my parents were not bad, but could not afford paying for me to go to college and covering basic expenses. Now, lucky for me, I did get a scholarship and grants, but it did not cover everything. So I needed a job. Part of my money went to household expenses as well as my needs, along with attempting to save for my future. So I got this job. I thought since my boss agreed to do this and was younger, I wouldn't have any issues. And I thought it would be okay, but I was completely wrong. My entitled boss worked the younger employees to the bone. We only had 10-minute breaks for meals and barely got any time for ourselves. Even our bathroom trips were being timed. I mean, this guy just had no sympathy. Even if a woman was pregnant, there was no leeway. And to top it all off, we were scared of upsetting him because he would go from friendly to crazy at the drop of a dime. One girl who was working there quit because she was wanting more than one day to bury her grandmother. He told her,
"Why are you crying? Your grandma was old. When I lost my grandparents, I didn't even take a day off. I just kept working. God, kids these days are so sensitive. The real world isn't going to coddle you, sweetheart. You get one day or you're fired."
Well, when he said that, she tossed her name badge at him and then she left. And seriously, that girl was super brave. I noticed that even with my regular hours, I was struggling to get by. So I looked for small gigs I can do on my work days that wouldn't conflict with my work hours. So I found one that worked. I worked part-time at a small craft store in my neighborhood, and it was after my main job hours and by my house. Now, I kept this on the down low because I knew if my boss found out I was working somewhere else, he would get mad that I requested 3 days off during the week. However, a regular of our store let it slip while she thanked me, which is how he found out that I was working at the craft store as well. And when he found out, he had an absolute meltdown. During my break, he called me to his office, and he demanded that I quit my second job so that I can be on call for my main one. He wanted me to work longer hours, but wouldn't give me a raise or even overtime to compensate for the extra time I might have been working, which by the way was not even guaranteed. Like seriously, I needed guaranteed money. So what incentive did I have to quit my second job? I needed extra money. Now, my nice boss from the craft store, they were paying me $6.50 an hour, and this was for 3 hours at 4 days a week. So when I said that I can't quit because I need that job for basic expenses, my entitled boss said to me,
"Don't you live with your parents? That's kind of pathetic. What expenses do you have? When I was your age, I already had my first home and was paying a mortgage. You just work here and go to college. Wait till you have to pay a mortgage and take care of kids. You either quit or you're gonna be fired."
Now, when he said that, I was so annoyed. He was not paying me extra, and he was not entitled to my time. He used up my only break to tell me to be broke because he thinks I'm leeching off of my parents. So I looked at him and I said, no, I'm not gonna quit. If you aren't giving me steady hours or a pay increase, why should I leave my second job? Also, I don't know why he didn't get that I am an adult. I had to pay towards my student loans, my phone, my transportation, and my food. This guy had no sympathy, and after my shift, he fired me. He expected me to bend to him, but I just didn't do it. He was a jerk and he made my life a living nightmare, even after I was fired. I couldn't even put that place on my resume because if I did, he would tell potential employers that I'm lazy and that I stole food. So I just put the nice manager as my previous employer, and she was overall significantly a much nicer person. I told her what happened and she gave me a little more hours at the craft store, and that really helped until the end of the semester. When I was looking for work, she gave me a good recommendation, and she was the sweetest woman. Now, I did have to pause my education because it took a while to get a new job. I needed to save up to continue, and eventually found a better paying job at a clinic. My nice boss wished me good luck in my future, and years later, when I was about 28 years old, I saw that this guy's store was for sale, and I was so happy to see that this guy's store got shut down. I asked around, and my old coworker said that nobody wanted to work for him because he was such a jerk. He started hiring undocumented workers and got in trouble for that. His wife left him for cheating on her with a 20-year-old, and he got fined so much he had to sell his home just to cover the fines and alimony. And as a wonderful ironic twist, he apparently had to move in with his parents. And I laughed so hard because this guy made my life a living nightmare for living with my parents. He was now divorced and living off of his parents all over again. And this is honestly just the best thing I could have ever seen. By then, I was a pastry chef making good money in Manhattan. So the universe was basically giving me a high five. And you know what? I saw that as karma. I was told that I could sue him, but at the time, I really didn't have the time or money to do that. But fate made this man feel it in the end. So I let it all go and I just moved forward. Now I'm in my own place with my loving partner. And I'm now almost the same age as my former entitled boss when I was fired. And trust me, I will never treat kids the same way that this entitled boss treated me. Yeah, your former boss is absolutely the worst. Seriously, this guy was like, you can only work for me. You're gonna have to quit that other job. But by the way, I'm not gonna pay you anything extra. Then it's like, wait a second, then why would I ever quit that job? I totally understand where you're coming from, where you're like, wow, this job sucks, and I definitely need something else so I can make ends meet. So for this guy to try and deny you that kind of relief is just crazy to me. So good for you for moving on with your life, and it is so good to see that karma got back at this guy, because his behavior and the way he treated you was so unfair, and you definitely did not deserve that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My stepmom no longer wants me a part of the family and has constantly treated me like garbage over the years. And at this point, I'm now living with my grandparents, and I simply have no desire to ever move back. Here's what happened. So I'm 20 years old, and I just got back from college. And recently, I got into a fight with my stepmom. I accidentally broke some glass on the door, and she had a temper tantrum over it. It was really humiliating because this happened in public. She started screaming at me and cussing me out, and it was then that I just lost my temper, and I said to her, wow, you didn't even ask if I was okay. And to that, she lost it even more, and told me that if I didn't like her rules, then I can leave. So that's exactly what I did. And yes, I did pay someone to fix the glass, and I did apologize constantly to her, but she told me that my apology means nothing to her. So I thought to myself, okay, fine, whatever. I've been staying at my grandparents for the past 5 days, and almost every single day, her and my father try to guilt trip me back into the house. For reference, it was my birthday a couple of days ago, and they told me that if I came home, I could have my present, but I wasn't falling for it, and I told them that I'll come back when I come back, which at this point is probably never. Even my dad tries to talk to me, which I was open about, and he told me the next day that he would come and get me from my grandparents' house so that we could talk. Well, that day came, and when I asked him when he was getting me, he told me to have one of my grandparents drop me off instead at the house. And at this point, my thoughts were like, yeah, that's a trap. That is not gonna happen. My stepmother has also decided to be petty and kick me off of the Apple and Amazon family sharing. And I'm constantly being bothered that I need to go home. In fact, my father texted me yesterday saying to me, you need to remember all the good things we did for you in the past and how good your stepmother has been to you. And my response was to say, well, I'm focusing on the present and not the past. And I feel like that's another guilt trip tactic. So I just blocked them both. And trust me, I have a lot more stories about how awful they've treated me, which are just as bad, if not worse, than what they're currently putting me through. Wow, good for you for finally getting out of that house. It sounds like this has been like a repeat issue for long enough, and dealing with this kind of stuff can only bring you so far. Like anybody has their breaking point, and they can only put up with so much at a time. So hopefully you don't have to go back to that house anytime soon, because your dad and your stepmom sound incredibly toxic. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for calling out a Karen who was blatantly trying to steal from the store I was shopping at? Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened to me on Christmas Eve. I was working late that evening and got off duty at around midnight. My wife called me to tell me that we were out of baby formula and that I needed to pick up some before before coming home. I stopped by our local store that's open for 24 hours, and of course, being Christmas Eve and nearing 1 o'clock in the morning, it was absolutely packed. They must have been short-staffed because there was only one checkout lane open at the time, so the line to get out of the store was quickly getting longer. So I grabbed the baby formula and quickly got in line. While patiently waiting my turn and scrolling through my phone, I noticed the entitled Karen of this story going down the line of people waiting to check out, asking them if she could borrow their ID, because apparently, and this is the story I got, she had returned too many things to the store without a receipt on her driver's license during the past year, and she had somehow reached her limit. She was actually hoping that someone would let them use their driver's license in order to make a return on her purchase, because she said, and I quote, "I thought it would make a nice Christmas present, but I simply don't have enough money to afford it." She eventually got to me, and I just politely declined. Now, for context, I'm currently wearing my uniform from work. I don't know why she didn't take my answer at face value, but she continued to accost me, wanting to use my identification, and even went so far as saying that I could use my work ID, and then she pointed at my chest. Now, I happened to glance down in the bag to see the items that she was attempting to return, and it was one of those high-cost electric razors. You know the kind. The ones that have the self-cleaning base that cost about $200. I also noticed that the packaging still had the anti-theft security device wrapped around the box, so it became pretty obvious that this woman had grabbed a plastic bag and then proceeded to take the item off of the shelf, put it in the bag, and pretend that she was trying to return it, when in all actuality, she was attempting to get free in-store credit or cash from this return. I very discreetly leaned over to her ear, and I said that I know what you're trying to do, so why don't you just go ahead and put that razor back on the shelf where you found it? Well, when I said that, she got very angry with me. "How dare you accuse me of stealing? I'm just trying to make a nice Christmas for my family." So, in a not-so-quiet voice, I said to her out loud, "I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't help you return your item that is still in the packaging with the anti-theft device still on it." Well, when I said that, several people in line realized what she was attempting to do, and they all started laughing. The entitled Karen, in a huff, left the rest of the line alone and proceeded to the men's hygiene aisle where the electric razors were kept. And I can only assume that she was going back there to put it back on the shelf and hopefully never make this kind of stupid decision ever again. Yeah, that lady was 100% trying to steal. And also, she's not very good at it because, like, seriously, the anti-theft device was still on it. What was she expecting? For them to be like, "Oh yeah, let me just give you money for this." Like, wouldn't that be a giant waving red flag that yes, she is absolutely trying to steal? Like, she clearly did not think this through at all. So good for you on your response, because seriously, that lady was completely out of her mind if she really thought that anybody was going to give her their ID. Because I know if I was in that situation, I absolutely would have said no, because what she was asking for is just completely insane. Am I the jerk for not signing my name off of my mom's house until I got paid by my sister? Because right now she's calling me money hungry, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my mother passed away suddenly about a month ago. It was a very shocking, traumatizing, and emotional situation, which I am sure is adding to all of these issues. She left her house to my older sister and myself, and I took 2 weeks off of work to help go through all of my mother's belongings and to try and coordinate the entire memorial. My sister moved into my mother's house shortly after my mother's passing, which we agreed on, and the other half of the agreement between us and our mother before she passed was that she was going to pay me half of the house's value, and this was also the agreed terms if I moved into the house instead. I have since informed my sister that I don't want the full half of the house's value, and instead I would be fine with about 25%, including the $11,000 my mom loaned me before she passed away. But here's the thing, she is asking me to sign my name off of the house's deed before she has even refinanced the house and paid me my portion. She is calling me money hungry and basically painting me as the villain when this was the expected and legal agreement the entire time. My husband and I could desperately use the money too, as we purchased my grandmother's house after her passing, and doing so put us into a lot of debt. Not that this really has any bearing on the situation at hand, but it seriously would help. So am I the jerk for not signing my name off the deed right away until I get paid? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and honestly, that's the exact same way I would handle it. She's only calling you money hungry because she wants your name off the deed. Like, the way she's acting is super sketchy, and I just wouldn't trust that entirely. So no, I think you're doing this all completely right, and if I was in your shoes, I would handle that the exact same way. My best friend constantly sleeps with married women, and recently crossed a line last week that has left me completely stunned and shocked at his behavior. And now, as a result, I am cutting him off as a friend and choosing to never deal with him ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that my best friend has a thing for married older women, and over the years, he has had surprising success in this area. It started when he was 18 years old and slept with a married 30-year-old woman with a kid. They were both waiters at a restaurant, and after months of flirting, she slept with him. In the 7 years since, there have been 12 of them, all married or engaged, with ages ranging from 30 to 52 years old. Now, in the beginning, I thought the whole thing was funny, but as the years have gone on, I have grown completely disgusted by this behavior. If we are at a bar and he sees a bachelorette party, he's over there hitting on the bride-to-be. He coaches his nephew's Little League team just to meet the moms, and he's had to leave 3 different jobs because he was sleeping with married coworkers, and all the husbands found out, leading to confrontations while he was on the job. Now, the last straw for me was last week. I recently got engaged, and my fiance's family threw us an engagement party. It wasn't a surprise, so my fiance and I both invited who we wanted, and one of the people I wanted there was one of my former managers at work. Let's call him Tom. Tom is not his real name. Now, I am a CPA at a big firm, and Tom was really a mentor to me when I started. He left to work in the industry, but we kept in touch and we are still close. Tom is 40 years old and is just the nicest guy you will ever meet. So he and his wife come to the engagement party. I had never met his wife before, but she is absolutely beautiful. And at one point during the party, I see my friend talking to Tom's wife, all while Tom is taking a phone call. I immediately go over and interrupt the conversation, and I pull my friend aside and tell him not to even think about it, to which my friend says that he wasn't going to, which was absolute BS, but I thought he took my warning seriously. But unfortunately, I was completely wrong. A few weeks later, Tom calls me and tells me that his wife has been acting strange ever since the engagement party, and he went through her phone and found text messages with another guy. And these messages included scandalous photos, if you know what I mean, and they were exchanged on both sides. So it was very clear that they had met up and spent some quality time together. Tom had confronted his wife the night before, and of course, it was my friend who she'd slept with. Well, Tom was devastated. He was crying on the phone, and he wasn't even angry. He just wanted to know why she did it, and was asking me to talk to my friend to get some more details. Well, I called my friend right after I got off the phone with Tom, and I basically exploded on him, ending our 20-year friendship just like that. Well, fast forward and it's been a week, and my friend hasn't stopped apologizing. Other than his despicable behavior with married women, he has been a really good friend to me. We have been like brothers ever since kindergarten. It hurts to throw away someone who has been such a big part of your life, but I just cannot be party to this anymore. I mean, am I making the right decision here? What should I do? Yeah, I think you're absolutely making the right decision. There is no way I would ever want to stay friends with that guy, especially after he broke up a marriage. Like, this Tom guy is completely devastated. He is torn to pieces because his wife was unfaithful, and it all begins and ends with the original poster's friend. Like, they just willingly ruined another marriage. Like, this is just nasty across the board. Like, there is no good excuse for this. So no, I don't blame you for breaking off from this guy, because if I was in your shoes, I definitely would have cut this guy off as well. An entitled jerk freaks out at my job and treats me like garbage, all because he doesn't get his way. So I decide to get some revenge by forcing him to apologize to me if he ever hopes to secure the reservation that he's trying to get. Here's what happened. So I own a store that's in the same building as a real estate office that rents beach houses on a small island. Now, we are open later than the real estate office, so they leave late check-in packages with us for their clients to come in and pick them up. Now, payment is due when they pick up sometimes, and payment must be with cash or a certified check. No personal checks or credit cards are allowed after hours. There's also no major chain hotels after 9 p.m. as everything is closed. Now, here's the thing. The clients are very informed on these policies. I mean, I hear the agents making the reservations when I'm in the office. Well, this is where our entitled jerk enters the story. He comes in to pick up his check-in package. I open the envelope and pull out the bill, which is right when he pulls out a personal check. I say to him, "I'm sorry, but we don't take personal checks." He hands me his confirmation, and I point to the bold print at the top of it that informs him of the payment policies. And it states quite clearly that we need certified checks or cash only. And when I say this to him, this guy loses his mind. He looks at me and says, "Do you know who I am?" I look at his paperwork and I say, "Sure, you're Mr. John Doe." And no, of course that's not his real name. He then starts in by saying, "You will take this check. And you know what? I could buy and sell you 10 times over, kid." As well as swearing at me multiple times and making personal insults towards me. Well, when he did this, I calmly put the keys and paperwork back in the envelope. I lean into him very close and calmly, and I quietly say to him, "There's an ATM at the corner. Once you have the cash and you apologize, you can have the package. Until then, you need to leave my store." Now, I was much larger and younger than he was, so he eventually got the picture and left. 20 minutes later, his wife comes in with the cash, but I inform her that was only half of the deal. She says to me, "He's a very proud man. He's not going to apologize." I say to her, "Well, I don't care if he's the Queen of England. I hope your car's comfortable because I give respect on the same level that I receive it." Well, after that, she must have given him an earful because 15 minutes later, he came in to give me the cash, he apologized, and then they went to their beach house. Now, he certainly wasn't happy, but maybe, just maybe, he learned a little bit of humility. That way, the next check-in person doesn't get the same kind of treatment. And no, the real estate office wasn't mad once they saw and heard the video of the interaction, because we laughed about that literally for over a month. Yeah, that entitled jerk was completely out of line. Like, who would go to a check-in person and be like, "Oh, I could buy and sell you 10 times over, kid"? Like, is that supposed to make me want to serve you better? If anything, it makes me do exactly what the original poster did. Tell you to get out and that I'm not going to serve you, and that I hope by doing so, I ruin your vacation. So honestly, I love the karma that came this guy's way, as he was forced to apologize and pretty much swallow his pride. Because you know for a fact he didn't mean it, but he had no choice but to do it if he ever expected to get that stupid beach house, and I find that hilarious and completely deserved. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.